Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, hi, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers here to talk Seahawks football after a great win in New York City against the Jets. Seahawks pulling that out 26-20, or 21, excuse me. And Seahawks climb into sole possession of first place by a game, technically 2 games against the Cardinals. The Cardinals lost, but we own the tiebreaker currently. I think, by what else is going on in the division, if we can get this key rematch game against the Cardinals this coming week and win that game, it almost puts us in a sure-handed spot to take this division if we can pull it out. We can go over the schedule stuff, compare the different teams as far as strength of schedule remaining, and kind of break that down a little bit. But 7-5, Keith. If I recall correctly, I haven't looked at your predictions, but you were basically right here with the Seahawks,
yep,
building momentum towards the end of the year and winning in December and finishing with 10 wins. I'd like to see one more than that anyway, out of these next 5 games. Talk to me. How are you feeling about this last crazy game back and forth? I just like, and then, you win these type of games though. And it kind of builds upon itself as far as the character of the team winning when things aren't going exactly correct. And McDonald seems to have this thing kind of dialed in.
Sometimes you have to win when you're not playing your best. And the special teams was terrible in this game. And that is not hyperbole in any way. And really dug a hole for this team, right? 2 fumbles on kickoff returns, another one that they happened to fall on, and a kickoff return touchdown by the Jets, a couple of other long returns by the Jets return player.
It was so bad they waived Laviska Shenault today. I mean, they just kicked him off the team.
Well, Shenault, his place on the team is to do that, is to take care of those kicks. And if he's not going to do that, if it's going to be a problem, then what's his place on the team for?
He lost a fumble, gaffed another one, lost one against the 49ers. He did have a kick return for a touchdown. He had a few receptions. Earlier in the year, it looked like they were going to feature him as the kind of the 4th wide receiver gadget kind of player and do all the kickoffs and stuff. Slowly over time, he lost some of those to D. Williams as far as the kickoff returns and opportunities. And then on the field, Bobo was out there ultimately more, and a few other.
Cody White.
White and
taking a snap. So.
He wasn't going to be a player that was to be back next year, and he just cost the team too much in season here. They had to move on. I think they also needed to make a statement with this move too, that they need to make these sorts of moves. They won't hesitate. And so unfortunate, but it didn't cost us the game. I mean, they overcame all of that. The defense played very well again, really only giving up 2 scores.
They gave up one drive.
One drive.
One drive started at the 20, and they were able to get a touchdown out of that. One touchdown was the kickoff return for a touchdown, and they gave up the one drive. The other time that we had a fumbled kickoff, which I think it was D. Williams who fumbled the first one, they didn't get any points out of it. So, you have that situation where the special teams gave the Jets the ball in scoring range twice and only got 7 points out of it. They give up one drive in this game. That's it. The defense played great. Yeah. They made Aaron Rodgers look very, very old.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers was close to only 50% completion percentage in this game. Didn't really help or do anything to help them win. A couple of times, I thought that maybe they could have made an opportunity and make Seattle pay. They had that drive that ended in Leonard Williams pick six for 92 yards. That was close to getting
Yeah.
in, and that would have been a 3-score game at that point. Who knows exactly how that would have played out? It didn't. Seattle made it a 1-score game, and they never scored again after that.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think that we also need to mention, like, all the things we're saying that's great about Seattle's defense. The offense only scored 19 points, and they had a lot of opportunities, and it just really could not move the ball,
that
especially
red
could not
zone
run.
debacle was crazy.
That red zone debacle, if they had lost this game, would have cost somebody a job.
They passed the ball 5 times inside the 4-yard line, including 3 times inside the 1-yard line, and wound up giving the ball back on the 16-yard line because of a sack, 4th down sack taken by Geno Smith. So you failed to get any points from running 8 straight plays from inside the other team's 4-yard line.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time, Keith. Now, I've thought about Ryan Grubb a few times during this season about, he's not doing a great job, but you got to kind of let this thing play out and get some more of his players or whatever into the system. That was really the first time I seriously considered Ryan Grubb's job on the line and may have cost him his job if Seattle would have gone on to lose this game. That would have been a kind of defining moment for him in a bad way in this season. And now that they won and it's going to keep going, and, he may have an opportunity to kind of still right that ship. I'm not sure, but that's just it's a tough thing. Obviously we don't have the right personnel, or something's not happening in order to because this is not the first time. This is like the 10th time that this is an issue.
They're really bad in short yardage situations, and part of that's because they can't run block. They can't run the ball. Ken Walker had 16 carries for 49 yards. Like, getting him 16 carries is kind of nice. 49 yards with that is only 3.1 yards per carry. That's not nice. And
it has become a little bit more balanced. I mean, they are running the ball over 40% of the time now, which is better than they were doing before.
They're trying.
They're trying. They just don't have the personnel to do it. I read a thing today. I think Brock and Salt were talking about the idea of Byron Murphy being a fullback in this system, because he did that a little bit for Texas, and it was successful. He had a couple touchdowns doing that. He blocked successfully during the season, and
Refrigerator Perry style.
Exactly. Everything should be on the table at this point. Whatever we're doing, it's not working, and it doesn't look like it's going to work. And so they've got to just change it up. You just can't put it in Geno's hands all the time and expect miracles, especially when the pass blocking isn't good as well. And it's just, it's a recipe for disaster, and it's not a recipe to win consistently in the NFL. And if you're going to be a playoff team, you're going to be one and done pretty quick, especially when there are other teams out there like Philadelphia, like a couple of the other teams that Seattle would have to face to get out of the NFC that have top 5 defenses and also top 5 offenses. And at some point it's just not going to work. Okay. So, this game was just kind of crazy. The back and forth, the injuries, the penalties that helped us on that last drive. I think they had 5 penalties against the Jets when we were in 3rd or 4th down situations on that last drive to help us out.
Yeah, but the thing is that none of those penalties were iffy penalties.
No, I know.
They were all like very easy call, obvious penalties. And so, getting that was nice. But if the Jets weren't, so handsy and problematic that way, the drive probably would have been more successful without it, because they were they were getting their hands on receivers when they shouldn't and tackling guys. There's a couple of non-calls that probably could have gone Seattle's way as well, but didn't. But, that happens over the course of a game. God, the Jets are a bad football team. They're just so undisciplined. Like, it's just
That's
crazy.
what it was so hard yesterday. You go up against any other team, and it's like, hey, I don't know if Seattle wins that game. They did enough in this game. And
12 penalties by the Jets, 10 in the second half.
Let's focus on something really good though. Leonard Williams. So Coach Mike McDonald said Leonard Williams is playing out of his mind right now, and that's certainly
because he is
true.
playing out of his mind right now.
It is crazy. Yeah. That score again. I'll say this: it was 21-7 when they were marching down to score. They were on the, Leonard Williams intercepted that ball, tipped that ball, intercepted on the 8-yard line. I think they were at the 13 at the time. So they made it a 1-score game where it would have been a 3-score game. And if they would have scored a touchdown, it would have put a lot of pressure on our offense, which was already struggling. Seattle scored the last 19 points in this game. Williams also had a blocked extra point, and he had 2 sacks on the final 2 possessions of the game. Player of the week for sure. He should have been last week. I mean, Kobe Bryant also, played well last week as well, had the interception pick 6, but Leonard Williams, 308-pound defensive lineman running 17.5 miles an hour for a pick 6 from the 8-yard line is something. I mean, you just don't see that in the NFL.
The longest touchdown by a player over 300 pounds in NFL history.
Yeah. And he didn't look like he was struggling either.
He didn't. Like when he was running out, I did not realize that it was Leonard Williams at first because I didn't think it was a defensive lineman. I thought it was, one of the linebackers or, at least a rush edge guy like Dre Jones. I did not expect it to be the 310-pound Williams. He is clearly extremely athletic on top of being huge and strong. He
said he got to about the 50-yard line. He was looking around him to try to see if he could flip it to another player, and he saw the contingency running down there with him. They were yelling at him, encouraging him the entire way, and he just had fun with it. And he knew he was going to score at one point, and he was just euphoric. And doing it in his old home and the kind of season that he's having now, and he's kind of turned loose and playing free and really loving this defensive scheme and the players around him. And it's just kind of a joy to watch a player kind of come into it like that.
Yeah. It's just been his last 2 weeks are 2 of the better weeks you'll see from a defensive tackle.
Last 2 weeks, 10 tackles. 6 tackles for loss, 4.5 sacks, and interception, pick 6, 92 yards, 6 quarterback hits, 2 pass deflections. And can't play any better than that.
And a blocked PAT.
And a block kick. Yep. That's it, man. That's amazing. So $21.5 million per year. We gave that man. And that's got to be the best trade and payoff for a player that John Snyder's had in his tenure, because there's been some duds. But
of the first round picks that he's given, traded away, the big name players that he's gone out and got, Williams has been the best of those trades, because it certainly wasn't Jimmy Graham.
Now, was it for him
or the other defensive lineman? So
did he give a second and a fifth, right?
Yeah, something like that. But almost first round value with the second and the fifth. So, but it was still a big time trade for a big time player. And to do that and get something out of it for a change, is kind of nice, because they rolled the dice on a bunch of those trades with, guys like Clowney and a defensive tackle the year before Clowney and Jimmy Graham and none of those seem to work out the way that the Seahawks expected them to. Um, but this trade has been really good for them.
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, we're really kind of improving, Keith. We're literally getting really close to being a top 10 defense, and we're certainly top 10 in the last 4 games. I mean, the last 3 straight games, Seattle's allowed fewer than 300 yards on offense. They've not allowed an offense to score more than 17 points since week 9, and have scored 14 points in that time period themselves. They are 4th in EPA per play over that span, 6th in EPA per drop back, and 3rd in rush EPA. 3rd in rush EPA. Now that's coming a long ways.
Especially since they couldn't stop any running game. Like, look what the Giants did to them on the ground. It just ate them for lunch. And for their last 4 games, and against some really good running teams, like the 49ers and the Rams, they've been outstanding against the run, against the pass, just in general.
The big change that has happened really is they're running, a lot more bare fronts, and they're tightening up their alignments in the middle and forcing teams to try to run on the outside. And that was kind of the tell in this game. New York ran the ball outside 76% of the rushing plays, season high rush rate for them for outside zone rushes. And they did that because Seattle was bunching up the middle on them, just like they have in the last few games. Breece Hall did average 5.0 yards per carry, but they still weren't very effective overall running the ball. Yeah, it's quite a turnaround, really, by this defense. I'll have to say. I mean, I didn't think it was possible the way that they were playing. They were playing so poorly, and boy, they've just really turned it around. Now, if the offense can get out of its own way, and the special teams can play. Now, the thing about special teams
was great early in the year.
The special teams was ranked 7th in DVOA until this New York game. So they haven't just been playing early in the year. They've been playing pretty consistently, but this last game was just horrendous. I don't know exactly what happened. They just fell asleep and didn't wake up, on time for this game is kind of basically what I'm thinking.
Well, I was thinking they've had a lot of injuries. They've had a lot of guys, a lot of change on the roster. And typically when a guy like Tyrese Knight gets inserted as a starter, he no longer has all of his special teams assignments. And, the next guy off the practice squad or the depth that they pick up, those guys end up filling in. And it might just be a case of too many changes too quickly and with that. And so they just don't have the practice together. They don't have the communication down because it's all new guys, because they've made so many changes with the middle linebackers and the safeties and even some of the wide receivers. Like, these are guys that typically do, that have jobs that do stuff on special teams. Well, now they're playing more, so they're doing less on special teams, and other guys have to step into that role. And maybe that's it, because Seattle special teams have been really good, and then in this game they were not good. And then the punter got hurt. Like, seriously, like Dixon getting hurt, that's rough right there.
Hopefully that won't be a long-term deal. That was back spasms. Now, from personal experience, I can tell you those last the 4 hours, or they can last 4 days or 4 months. So hopefully
watching him run in to be the holder on on the long field goal. It was hurt. It hurt watching him run. Like, he was clearly in pain. The idea that he was going to go out and actually punt the ball, that's not going to happen. And it ended up working in Seattle's favor because they ended up 4th and 6.
Unreal.
And Myers hadn't practiced receiving long snaps or punting yet, because he didn't know what was going on. Dixon was unavailable, so they ran a play and picked up the first down and ended up scoring. So it ends up, it kind of worked out for him a little bit, but man, they didn't have a punter in like
And
the
on
fourth
that
quarter.
drive, it resulted in the game-winning touchdown.
Yeah.
They kept going, kept that thing alive.
Yeah. They didn't have a punter down the stretch, and it never came back to hurt them because
I
the
also
offense
just
scored
really wanted to
and then
see
ran the
Jason
clock out.
Myers kick the ball. I did. I
Oh,
want to see it.
I didn't want to see that at all.
I wanted to see it just from a curiosity standpoint. Like, can the guy kick like 45, 50 yards? And if so, what are we doing employing a punter, at $4 million a year? Okay. So let's talk about Sateo Lumea. Now,
Yeah.
he got his first start. How would you grade his performance?
It was uneven. Got pushed around a little bit. There were some miscommunication problems where both him and Oluwatimi both pulled, and nobody blocked the defensive tackle, and someone is responsible for that defensive tackle on the outside sweep play. So there were some of that happened. He got pushed around a little bit, but ultimately he didn't look worse than Bradford.
He also pushed some people around. Again, that kid's pretty athletic,
He is athletic. He was a tackle in college.
He has a little bit more physicality to him than. Well, I just don't even remember seeing him play even in preseason. So it was kind of a revelation just to watch him a little bit today.
He played a lot in the preseason.
I think he did. I just wasn't paying attention, But just to see him out there and have him hold down the fort at that spot, there was no indication or reason to believe that they would make a change. It strikes me as odd that Christian Haynes is going through this kind of a thing where he's on his job is on the line every week, and the kind of coaching staff is kind of forcing him to work hard or try to earn his spot over and over again, and he's unable to do it. This is like, chance number 3 or whatever.
Yeah, because it was really surprising. There was an open competition between the two of them, and Haynes has got all the playing time. He's got the experience at the position because he was a college guard. He's got the draft pick status. And like I said, and he'd been playing in almost every game. And suddenly Lumea's the starter, like clearly
and
better.
100% of the snaps.
Yeah. They didn't even bring Haynes in like to get him a series or anything. Like there is something going on. Now, physically, Haynes can do the job. We can see it in his college tape. We saw it some in the preseason. Like, he can do the job, but there's got to be something going on upstairs, going on in his head that's hurting him right now, because the fact that he couldn't get on the field in this situation it's just kind of a disaster for the Seahawks. Luckily, Lumea stepped in, played pretty well.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. All I can say is the kid better work his ass off in the off season and be ready to come in and earn a spot in next May for mini camps, because they're probably going to end up drafting another guard, and he's going to have even more competition. And he just, I know that they want him to be successful, and I know certain players require certain things to be said to them, or certain things to be done in order to get them motivated to do X, Y, or Z. And obviously the coaching staff feels that this is the best way to reach this kid, is to challenge him on a weekly basis, challenge his practice work ethic, challenge him, in every way, really. I mean, they're not taking it easy on him. They're not handing him anything, and he's failing over and over. And they're still kind of publicly saying, dude is not showing up in practice and taking the spot. You got to show up every day. Every day is a competition. Every day you have to prove it. And I keep hearing those things out of Mike McDonald's mouth about him. And it's obviously not working, but they still feel like that's the best way to reach him. And I can only hope that it does over
So
the off season.
this whole situation makes me think of a couple things. One, Tyrese Knight, um, in the summer, in training camp, in the preseason, like it looked like he was doing really well, playing really well, like making the right reads, making tackles, doing what he needed to do. Um, but McDonald and company, they weren't. They were like, nah, like he's got to step up. He's got to make all the right calls, and they just kept challenging him and just saying like, no, it's not good enough. And then he didn't play much on defense for the first like 6 games. And then they made moves to get him in the lineup. Whatever he did, they motivated him to learn and get smarter, get better, so he was ready to play. And now he's ready to play, and he's in there, and he's playing really damn well. And so it works. I'm all for it. Go for it. If this is what it takes to turn Haynes into a good player, okay, then do it. I'm concerned that it's a confidence issue, and this isn't going to help him. The other thing that made me concerned is I think it's mental. I think it's upstairs, just because of what we've seen from him already, and his college tape and all of that. And it made me think of. Do you remember Pete Kendall? He was a guard in Seattle before Mike Holmgren, and then Mike Holmgren came in and basically shipped him out. And the reason he went to the Jets, timely, example, and became their starting center and was a Pro Bowler and was great. But he always kept asking the coaches why. We're going to do this. Why? Because he wanted to learn. For him, it was academic. Like he wanted to know, why are we doing it this way? What's the thought process here? And they took it as him questioning their judgment, and wanted him to shut up and just do his job. And they wanted nothing to do with him and all those questions. So they got rid of him because of it. And it turned out to be just an old school coach doing stupid things and not being willing to teach a guy that's obviously wants to learn. And that's why he's asking questions. Offensive line coaches, they can be like that. Even today. I know that was a while back. But even today, more than any other position, offensive line coaches are very old school. And I'm wondering if we have a case where certain things like that have happened, and it's really just put Haynes in the doghouse, and then it becomes an uphill climb to do anything right in the coach's eye. So, and I don't have any evidence of that. It just made me think of it. It reminded me of the whole Pete Kendall situation, because the guy was obviously good, like really good. And the coaches were like, no, we don't need him, and sent him. And it wasn't until later that we found out why. And it was just, the whole situation was weird. And this whole situation is weird. So anyways.
Interesting. Yeah. So it is. Okay. So we traveled to the Arizona Cardinals this week. Finally a meaningful game in
You're
Arizona.
gonna be there, aren't you?
I know, it's crazy. And this is kind of a game that you need to win the division. Like, you need to win this game in order to win the division, I believe.
Yeah. You win this game and you probably win the division.
Well, and the reason that I say that too is that it seems like the Cardinals have a far more favorable schedule the rest of the way. So they've got the Seahawks, Patriots, Panthers, Rams, 49ers. That seems pretty simple now that the Rams and 49ers have fallen off. Rams kind of hanging in there a little bit, but 49ers, Panthers, Patriots, no resistance probably to the Cardinals. So that's 3 wins. If they get the Seahawks game, that's 4 wins.
Yeah.
Now,
so if the Seahawks win this game, it gives them 2 games and the tiebreaker over Arizona. A 2-game
Yes.
lead plus the tiebreaker, it gives them a margin for error that they have not had at
And
any
our
point this
schedule
season.
is the Cardinals, Packers, Vikings, Bears, Rams. Now, if we happen to catch the Rams on a good day, the Rams can be tough. The Bears are kind of a hot mess. The Vikings and Packers are both legit. The
Yeah,
Cardinals is going to be,
the Bears just fired their coach over an end of
yes,
game
right.
disaster.
Oh, yeah. That 30-second runoff of time was crazy.
I'm still confused. I know he was like, oh, it's the right call, but he kept defending it. I'm like, don't defend this, dude. Don't defend the indefensible. That was so bad by
yeah, you left
Caleb
the game
Williams
with
and
a
him.
timeout in your pocket. It's
Yeah,
not defensible.
after having
Okay.
the clock run all the way down.
So Cardinals, Packers, Vikings, Bears, Rams. Can we do that gauntlet, Keith? It seems like a little bit of a gauntlet to me. The Cardinals are no pushover. There's equal as Seattle as far as wins and losses this year, -1. They're a good team, solid team at home. They just lost a close game to the Vikings, who basically weren't in that game until the final 2 minutes. And the Packers and the Vikings are looking to kind of secure their spots in the playoffs. Vikings are going to get there no problem. Packers are, similar to Seattle in that respect. Bears, Rams. What do you think?
Well, the Bears and the Rams, those are winnable games. If they beat the Cardinals here, that gets them to 10 wins with the advantages I was just talking about. They win the division, regardless of what happens against the NFC North teams. I don't believe that the Vikings are as good as their record. I've watched them play a lot, and they find ways to pull games out, but they don't necessarily look good doing it. And I'm still not a believer in Sam Darnold. So I think that's a winnable game. And the Packers are good based on reputation, but they're not a juggernaut. Um, they've beat a lot of bad teams and struggled at times to do it. So I think they can win enough games to do this. But it has to start this week. If you lose to Arizona, you give up your game advantage in terms of record and your tiebreaker. So now you've got to beat them outright in terms of record, and they're just going to win more down the stretch than you are because they've got an easier schedule. So unless Kyler Murray's head falls off, and the bobblehead that he looks like sometimes when he's running around in there, yeah, you're not going to catch him. You've got to win this game. You've got to win this game.
I mean, it clearly puts Seattle in the driver's seat. You win this game, it really does. Rams won, yesterday, but they don't look like they're gonna, and they still have the Bills, 49ers, Jets, Cardinals, Seahawks on their schedule, and San Francisco has the Bears, Rams, Dolphins, Lions, Cardinals. They're not going anywhere. So it's Seattle's to lose, which is crazy.
San Francisco, they are beat up like crazy. McCaffrey's out for the rest of the season. Mason is also going on IR, so they're going to be down to the third string running back, and you're going to see a lot more Deebo Samuel in the backfield instead of at wide receiver. And they're just injured all over the place. That team, they're also 2 games under 500, 3 games back of Seattle.
Here's the way I see San Francisco. They're not only done this year, I think they're done. This is that was kind of their run, and now they got to kind of go rebuild some things in the off season. And I don't know that they're going to come back to the same level for a while.
Yeah, they've got to pay Brock Purdy in there too. So,
so it's interesting that Seattle has gone from 4 wins to now 7 in 3 weeks. And in command of this thing. Excuse me.
Yeah, we were looking.
It's just wild. It's wild.
We were looking at when they were 4-5. We're like, if they lose these next 2, the season's over. Start packing it in, and going for a draft pick. And instead, they won those 2. Then they followed it up with another win. Now they're in first place. It's not a strong division, and you're winning at the right time. Yeah, just got to keep it up. Just got to keep it up. Keep winning.
Yeah. They could win out too. I mean, crazier things have happened. Cardinals, Packers, Vikings, Bears, Rams. I could see them winning all of those games, which would just be phenomenal. Also would get me to my 12-win prediction, which I would feel really good about. All right.
Okay.
Let's get out of here.
I think 10 or 11 is more reasonable.
Well, of course it's more reasonable. Of course it is, Keith. You're a very reasonable human. I was being a little wild in the head.
I don't know.
The 1st of September.
The YouTube commenters don't seem to think I'm a reasonable person. So
that's true. Well, you're not. I mean, not on this show. Now, in person, you're a fine person, Keith, really. But on this show, you're kind of
crazy. It's been known to be true.
All right. So let's get together later in the week and talk about this Arizona game coming up.
Definitely do that. It's an important game.
All right. Find Keith on Blue Sky at Myers NFL. You can find me on Blue Sky at NWC Hawk and that other place as well. And we're still over there, but I'm starting to kind of get the feeling that Blue Sky is probably going to be the future. So you can find us there. Find the podcast on your favorite podcast platform, our YouTube channel. Those things have stayed the same and always will. And once you get on there, hit that subscribe button, share it, leave a comment for Keith. I'll make sure he sees it and rub it in a little bit. Okay, that's it. Take care, guys. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NWCHawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.